my name is Samanta Krishnapillai. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the founder, executive director, and editor in chief of the On Canada Project, a social enterprise that started on Instagram to give people the information they need to stay informed, take up action, and champion change during COVID-19 and beyond. Um, well, I mean, I guess it's still going on since the pandemic is still persisting. Yeah, I guess I made up a role for myself. My educational background is in health sciences and health information sciences. So when the pandemic happened, I realized that we needed to find a way to give people the information that they need in a way that's like easy to understand, um, conversational, and easy to follow, so that they can make informed decisions for themselves. So I started an Instagram account to do that. And over the last year, we've put out, bite-sized content that plainly explains how the virus transmits, how to protect yourselves, changing legislations, and taking like a justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion lens to the issues that are occurring in our country while this pandemic is going on. But yeah, I guess it's a role I created for myself around like knowledge translation and information sharing. Yeah, I mean, our whole account is, which reaches now 130,000, or over 130,000 followers on Instagram. Our whole account is like community based. It doesn't work without community. We think of community as the people who follow our account. We think of community as the people on our team. We think of community as the other accounts that are doing similar work. And we think of community as our advisors or resources or friends that we tap into to ask to plainly explain something to us so that we can share it with the public. So working with the community has been, and leaning on the community and creating community has been a big part of the work that the project's been doing. I'd say that uh, the most like I guess exciting part of the community building stuff was for several months. It's kind of petered out now, but for most of like the bulk of the pandemic in Canada, all of the Instagram accounts that talked about similar uh, material had like a once a month meeting where we would talk about how we can combat misinformation together as a group, and we would create we had group chats and like communication pathways open between all of these accounts that really shows this like community over competition um, focus that really should exist during a pandemic, but also oft after it. Um, but yeah, I think that was probably something that was definitely a highlight when I think of like the external community that we work with. Internally, it's just having all these volunteers that are part of the work that we do that really want to contribute to some sort of solution. And I think that's what makes it really exciting to sort of go to work every day is working with people who are just as passionate about disrupting the status quo and supporting people in ways that perhaps our country or our leadership is not really focusing in on right now. I guess a challenge that we faced um, for a bulk of the period through this pandemic, we were just like a bunch of volunteers working for free. And it was really like a grassroots passion project. But over this summer, we decided to make it into a business, social enterprise. Um, and we started like working with clients like Kids Help Phone or Google News Initiative, Facebook Canada, that like has allowed us to start growing this like business on the back end of this Instagram account, which has been like really wild. It's not what I thought I'd be doing in my life, but it's been challenging and exciting. And um, yeah, that's probably the sort of back end part of like figuring and navigating that out. That's not my educational background, but it's been really great. I think that the recovery process won't work uh, in our country, in our world, unless there's an equitable distribution of vaccines. Um, Right now, the high-income countries have had access, they've vaccinated, they've had high rates of vaccination, but countries that are low income, and often a lot of those countries are actually recovering from colonization and things that benefited these high-income countries. Um, a lot of these low-income countries are not gonna be like, unless they get vaccinated, we're not gonna stop variants from emerging. So one of the biggest things that I think we need to do is find an effective strategy um, for vaccine distribution. Like we have the solution, we know how to make vaccines, we have enough money in the world to do it. We're just not doing it. So these are like fixable problems. It's going to take someone, and like it's going to take global cooperation and a sort of selflessness from these like high GDP countries to show up and take care of our global community. I think here in Canada, what we need to see is policies that reflect what's actually going on rather than this weird like political game that it feels like some of our leaders are playing. You can't like stop schools every 10 minutes because you don't have an effective strategy to curb spreading. We need to develop a culture of testing um, and isolating and all that stuff. But then we also have to make it accessible to access tests and not just for people who are wealthy enough or privileged enough to access them. So I would say those are sort of the two big things that I think about, and it keeps me up at night as solutions that we could use. There are communities that are vaccine hesitant. There are communities that are anti-vax, and then there are communities of people who are not eligible for vaccines. I think all of these groups, well, I think for vaccine hesitant groups that we need to do our best to provide the information in a compassionate way that encourages them to take the vaccine. And for communities that are unable to get the vaccine, we have to keep informing the public that it's important that we are getting vaccinated because there's some people who are unable to and need that like herd immunity and protection. And then for those who I guess just don't believe in vaccination, I remind them of all the things vaccines have prevented us from. And yeah, I mean, like I'm very, very fond of all of the privilege I get from having vaccines. I think I think it's a really I think it's a really important thing that people should be getting.